Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Guest, and welcome to the Imagine Golf podcast, brought to you by Imagine Golf and PXG. You can go to our site, ImagenGolf.com, and see all of our offerings, including our free drills, our practice plans, our golf ebooks and videos, and to book a lesson with me. And you can sign up for our free tips and videos that go out every week by simply dropping us your email. So in today's podcast, it's an interesting topic because, and we'll talk more about why it's interesting in a few minutes to me personally, but virtual lessons. Are they for real? Is the topic today. And I'm fortunate enough to have Keith Cioli on, the founder of GolfLive, one of the leaders in the virtual lessons space. Keith, good morning, or good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, man. And Keith and I, believe it or not, have Keith's way younger than I am because I'm an old guy, but we do have some similarities in our background. Keith, I don't know if you realize this, but we're both in corporate America, both college educated, both in corporate America, following the, grab the money kind of train, if you would, and got promoted and all these different, awards and all this in our corporate life. And then we find ourselves working for ourselves, years later. It's kind of funny when you think about it. So, Keith, why don't you give us, I know you're from Texas Tech. You're in Texas. You're a Texas Tech grad, right? What are they, the Raider Red? Is that what they are?
Yeah, the Red Raiders.
Red Raiders, same thing, right? But why don't you go through your background a little bit and tell us who you are?
Yeah, and that's fascinating that we have similar backgrounds. And I often look back at kind of my journey. And, I graduated from Texas Tech and left Lubbock and went to Houston for, about 9 years in the oil and gas space.
Imagine that, right? In the oil and gas space in Texas. Imagine that.
Yeah, right. Yep. And so then, I started building GolfLive and it quickly became a huge passion, and then something that really I felt fit the market and the need for millions of people out there. And so I went for it. But yeah, that's fascinating that we have similar backgrounds there of corporate America and then finding ourselves in golf, which is the greatest sport that there is. So
yeah, the hardest sport too, right?
100%.
It's not a negative either, right? I mean, one thing I always said to myself, I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I never was 100% committed behind an idea. And that always rubbed me the wrong way, right? Because you can't be an entrepreneur, or you can be, but you can't be a successful entrepreneur if you're not 100% committed, right? So it was tough for me, So I did the corporate America thing because I was good at it, paid the bills, and just waiting for that moment. And it is kind of funny how golf has kind of done that for both of us.
Yeah, and something I've told people in the past is, and a lot of successful people will say this, but it's so true as we've gotten GolfLive up and moving. You talk about the idea, but you have to really love and be obsessed with the journey of the idea, not just the destination, because your destination's constantly moving and it can get really frustrating if you're not loving the journey and loving what you're doing every single day. And so I think that's the thing, that a lot of people might have ideas and they might be good ideas, but they might not be obsessed or passionate about the journey to get there. And so that's why you see a lot of people, roll over with these ideas.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, it's interesting, you're talking about ideas is a good segue. The idea of virtual lessons, I got to tell you, and when we met, I told you this, I was not a fan. I'm a pretty conservative guy by nature. I'm not a pessimist at all. I'm just the opposite. I'm an eternal optimist. But the idea of taking a virtual lesson from someone, something as complicated as a golf swing, I thought it was a fad, man. And I wasn't behind it in any way, shape, or form. So the fact that I'm here, talking to the founder of one of the premier companies and getting behind it now really kind of throws me for a loop every once in a while. I got to kind of pinch myself. But I've used the technology. I've seen it. I've given these lessons, and I'm hooked. I am a believer. I'm a believer that it's the future of golf lessons. I don't know that it's 100% replacement. I don't think that's anyone's objective, if you would. Maybe it is yours. But at the end of the day, there's a place for it, right? And I think there's the rub. There's always a place for something that has value. And virtual lessons definitely have value. There's no doubt about it. Our students find value in it. And just from a conceptual standpoint, it absolutely makes sense. There's so many advantages to the virtual platform. So why don't we talk about a couple of those advantages, if you would? Why don't you start, and I'll chime in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you were talking about, there is a place for it, right? And I'm the prime example where, I was in corporate America with, married and two kids, and, getting a golf lesson at Wednesday at 2 p.m. just really wasn't an option. And
Right.
so now you talk about this golf boom. It's pretty difficult to find a golf lesson that fits your busy schedule, right? And to be able to go have a coach with you live in real time, with a lot of the features that I'll get into here at 8 p.m. at night, after the kids go down, like that's huge. And
Yeah.
that allows me to spend 10, 15 minutes with a coach and truly get better at the game of golf. Our technology, though, is what really differentiates us from what people would probably consider a virtual lesson. So, you can think other platforms like Zoom or FaceTime, but with our live replay technology, that the coach is there in real time and able to record you even though they're 2,500 miles away from you, and immediately able to play that back for you, draw, annotate, and you're seeing that all in real time. What this does is it provides an engaging and effective experience that it doesn't matter how you learn best, whether it's kinesthetic, auditory, or visual, because all three are happening at the exact same time for you. And that is what creates this really effective golf lesson. And that's just the technology. Really, the company itself, we care about your journey, and we send out welcome packages. We're going to check in with you, make sure that you're satisfied with where your game's at, or the journey that you're on to get to your end goal. And we actually really, really care about that. That's our number one priority, to be quite honest with you. So, you think back to some of the people that have been with us from day one, and I've talked to customers that have dropped, granted, let's say they were shooting in the hundreds, they're shooting in the low 80s right now. And so that's all virtual with coaches, around the world. And so now you have, there's a guy out of California that was one of our first customers as well. And he was already a 7 or 8 handicap. And just through virtual lessons, he's dropped down to a 3, which that's a big jump, right?
Yeah.
When you go from a 7 to a 3. And so not just the relationships, not just the technology, but does it really work? We've shown through our customer testimonials that yes, it does work.
Yeah. One thing you said, I couldn't agree. I wrote down, just 2 quick notes here. The Zoom and the Facebook and the video conference and all that the early stages, if you would, we're so far past that right now, right? And even some of the early adopting companies, the trend, the leaders, if you would, or the early companies that led the industry in the beginning, their tech is kind of dwarfed, if you would, by some of the new tech coming out, right? You mentioned like the ability to record the entire lesson. 90% of all people learn more with their eyes than anything else, right? So if you can go back and just watch this, the lesson you already paid for, right? The lesson that you did good in and saw gains in, and you can watch that over and over and over again, sold, right? That's enough right there. And then, most people, getting back to 90%, most people forget 90% of what an instructor told them at a lesson, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Just that ability there. And then on top of the technology, on top of that, I mean, the other technology that has gotten the eyes of a lot of people, it's just astounding. Hey, while I got you, why don't you talk about how you got together with Chris and talk about his affiliation with the company and what that means to you?
Yeah, I will, absolutely. So, and that was one thing I was going to mention that I didn't a second ago, was on top of the technology, we do have a vetting process, and elite coaching and solid coaching is obviously the most important part of all of this, no matter what platform you have. And whenever you have solid, really, really good coaching combined with the technology, that's what can create the results, right? And so at the backbone of GolfLive, it's the coaches that we have that really create the product that we do. And so then throughout my journey, I was introduced to Chris Como, and he loved the technology, fell in love with the what we call now the micro sessions, being able to talk to someone for 5 to 10 minutes and have it recorded and have it all in one smooth place, right? Your whole lessons recorded. You can do the live replays, and he's talking to someone for 5 or 10 minutes, right?
Right.
And for me personally, going back to kind of what I love about Golf Live is I might not have an hour to go get a golf lesson, right? But I might have 10 minutes to do 20 swings in the net in the backyard with a coach. And
Yeah.
so that's, we're talking about the convenience, right? And the effectiveness. But back to Chris. So he fell in love with kind of what our vision was. And we're very lucky enough to have him come on as a partner inside the company and really help us continue to drive the vision even bigger than what I ever imagined, right? And we have
Right.
some features coming out here at the end of March and early April, such as group lessons and live stream lessons that really is nowhere on the market. And so we're really excited about that. And that's through Chris. And then Chris's, vision of being able to take this platform, if you will, and grow the game of golf in a very scalable fashion for all and make it accessible for all. And
Right.
and so that's been a really great partnership that he's extremely involved in on the day to day. And so we're really blessed to have him.
Yeah, and just for those that don't know, this is not Chris Cuomo from CNN, right? We're not talking about the anchor. We're talking about Jason Day's coach and a world-class coach up there with the likes of Hank Haney and Butch Harmon. I mean, I met this guy. He's a phenomenal guy. I mean, you don't even have to meet him. You can just watch a couple of his videos and this guy knows what he's talking about. So
Yeah, and he's Tiger Woods' former coach, and I actually met him up there at Jason Day's charity event, which, by the way, Jason Day's Brighter Days Foundation is absolutely incredible.
right.
And so I met him there, and yes, he's the number 2 ranked coach in the world, and he knows exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. A couple of things that you said started to ring true with me. You talked about, I think one of the things that I had a negative vibe towards was, the 10-minute lesson, the 5-minute touch up, the 20-minute lesson, right? And it's probably just a paradigm shift for me, right? I was always used to hour lessons. You do 30,000 lessons, you do 30,000 of anything, and you get used to it, right? So I didn't really see the power of that 10-minute touch up until I started working with, virtual lessons, if you would. You got a student that is on a business trip or on a golf trip, and all of a sudden, they're duck hooking their driver, if you would, and they can't figure it out, and they don't even want to pull the thing out of the bag anymore, right? They can sit there, drop the phone down, take a quick 10-minute lesson, whether I'm there or not, and we can get them straightened out. And that is beyond powerful, right? It takes the whole location and geo, if you would, out of the mix. And I think that really started to sway me when I had students start to dial me up and start to say, hey, Daniel, I need help here. Or, to your point, I'm working at home now, but I'm stuck at home, right? I can't get to the studio to take a lesson for you. So it really is the future, right? There's no doubt about it.
Well, it creates a lot of options, right? And so, I'm a prime example. We actually posted it on Instagram the other day, and people were commenting like, haha, this is fake. And it was like very, very real, unfortunately. But
Right.
I developed the shanks. And I even hate saying that word on the podcast, but I
No
really
kidding.
did.
We don't say that. Hey, we call it the S word. We don't say it, right? The S
I
word.
know. And so a guy named Todd out of Arizona that I had actually met recently, I got on with him on the platform, and he fixed me in 7 minutes, and I haven't had one since. All I needed was
Right.
7 minutes with him. I didn't need to schedule, an hour-long lesson on a tee somewhere. But with that said, I don't think it replaces, an hour-long lesson with somebody, because that's really powerful too. Maybe some lessons need to be 2 hours or, 3-hour
Yeah,
group lessons.
yeah.
But it adds another component that a busy professional or, the kid that's at home waiting for mom or dad to finish cooking dinner, right? They can be in their backyard and be talking to a live coach for 10 to 15 minutes before dinner. And being able to see what they're practicing and constantly be with them at all times versus 1 hour a month, and then God knows what they're practicing the rest of the month, right? Without you. that's where it's really effective and really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And just a little disclaimer, I wasn't available for Keith's lesson there. Otherwise, I'd have been teaching him, right, Keith?
That is correct, actually. Yes, that is correct.
So one
So
little thing
no,
that came to one little sorry to interrupt. One little thing came to mind when you were saying that. So one of the ways that I'm starting to use it now is, believe it or not, like homework oriented, right? So Keith takes a lesson from us either at one of our outdoor facilities or in our private studio. And we always follow up with a lesson recap and the normal stuff that we do, if you would. Everything's in writing and they have homework and everything. But now we're starting to schedule time with the student away from the lesson platform or away from one of our facilities or locations, and saying, hey man, how is the homework going? If you would, hey, show me the the drill that you're doing. Let's see the progress, week over week, if you would. And it really is starting to take hold. People are saying to us, hey, what is my homework this week, right? And that never used to happen. So it's just another way, to utilize. Again, back to another tool, right? It's another tool in the bag, no different than a club, if you would. It's another way to get better at the game, right? And everyone says that, right? Everyone says they want to grow the game, they want to get people better, but not a lot of people are doing it. And this medium, and GolfLive in particular, is really adding to that.
yeah, and back to your point from earlier, though, like this could be a tool versus the 100% way you do it, right? And
Yeah,
your facility is absolutely beautiful, right? That indoor facility, and I
yeah,
know you have other locations as well. And this isn't always going to replace that, but it can empower and excel everything that you're doing as a student and a coach by simply checking in virtually. You probably have a lot of students that send in videos, and
yeah.
you know, as a student, sending in that video is great, but if you have live dialogue on that video in between your sessions, that's what is really important because you can have self-discovery. You can, if you don't have that dialogue, excuse me, then you might misinterpret what a text message or a voiceover is saying. And so to be able to have that live dialogue back and forth, that's so crucial.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So that's another good segue. I've given a couple hundred before I met with Keith and his firm and his company. I had given a couple hundred virtual lessons, if you would, and they were good. They weren't as good as they could be, and that's partly because I was new to the medium, and partly because the firm that I was using, the technology I was using, wasn't up to snuff, if you would. And one of the things that attracted me to GolfLive, not just Keith's electric personality, but the actual technology and the differences that is in the GolfLive application and the whole product itself. Keith, why don't you talk about the ease of the app and how easy it is to request a tee time, if you would, and go through it, because it really is state of the art.
I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's free to download the app.
Right.
There's no subscriptions involved. You only pay for the lesson, which you see the coach's rates, and we charge by the minute. So you're not going to pay, a 1 hour fee if you're on for 10 minutes. And
Right.
now feel free to stay on for an hour by all means. But um, you go on the app once you create a profile, and it's off to the races. You click select a pro and find your coach, schedule a time with them, and you're good. Or you can select, schedule a future lesson or immediate lesson, and you'll have a coach, hopefully Daniel, that
Right.
is grabbing that lesson immediately within seconds, really, and having a coach at your fingertips. But once you get into the lesson, which is all inside of the app, the coach is able to be on a live video call with you. They can click record, and then in that recording and draw on that video, and you're watching all this in real time, and being able to see your live replays. And so what you alluded to earlier, after this lesson's over, not only do you have those live replays, not only do you have the chat and maybe other pre-recorded videos and that whole live lesson, but everything is recorded. So you can go back and rewatch the entire thing. And that's really cool. And that's where our patent pending technology is, the ability to, have this live replay and have the whole recording. So it's been really, really fun to watch golfers grow and coaches scale their business with this tech.
Yeah, it's very cool. And it's important, as a golf instructor, right? You work so hard to get a student and you work so hard to help that student. you can't partner, and you have a certain level of expectations, right? Like we at Imagine, we have certain criteria that we go through with everyone. We don't change that, right? It's the same for the level of experience is the same for everybody, and it's high, right? We have more 5-star reviews than any of our competitors in a 3-state area, for crying out loud. So we can't partner with a company that likewise doesn't have a similar reputation in the marketplace and doesn't have technology that's easy to use and that's good, and we just can't have that. So it was a no-brainer once I went through the demo and saw this. I felt like the look and feel and the overall experience was like the Mercedes or the BMW of the car business. I really felt like this was top notch. So it was easy for me to get behind GolfLive rather than some of the other competitors.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I want to, not to interrupt you, but I do want to say on that, it took us 2 years to build this and really get the beta going because of exactly what you just now said. We worked with partners that are very high up in the industry, and we wanted their support in order for us to really get this thing going. And because it was so different, and someone like a Chris, the ease of use, the smooth technology, like all that user interface for the student, that's so important whenever you're building a product. And so it wasn't something we scrapped together and said, let's go. We spent 2 years really building this out and making sure that it was easy for you to use, but also for the coaches to use,
Right.
And the last thing I'd say on that is y'all are so good at what you do. You don't have to touch a student in order to be effective in a golf lesson. Right. And so that's what's brand new. It's like, you can't touch them, but you're so good at what you do. And that's also what we're trying to relay to students and what students are already experiencing.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to what the students are experiencing. We talked all through the podcast here, that it doesn't have to be a replacement, but for the traditional golf lesson. But at the end of the day, it definitely is opening new avenues. I ran some numbers here for the podcast in preparation today, and there's almost 500,000 students in the last probably 36 months that have taken a virtual lesson. And even though that number is pretty big, what's bigger, or what stands out more to me than that, over half of those people, Keith, have never been on a golf course. So
wow.
You're bringing people to the game. I mean, like I said earlier in the podcast, right? Everyone says they want to grow the game. That is really growing the game. You brought 250,000 people to the game, right, that have never been on the golf course. And there's not even a regulatory body or an association yet for the Virtual Golf Association, right? So these are just numbers that it's probably triple that, if you would. So it really is a different medium that's going to not only help the game but help people. When you look at golfers, their handicap, the average handicap hasn't changed or gotten better for the last 50 years, right?
Wow.
So
yeah, right.
so one could make the argument that the current instructional system, by and large, is broken. People aren't getting any better, right? All this technology and all these great things that we're bringing to the table, people aren't getting better, and this is absolutely a way for people to get better. And they can see it. They can see it. They can feel it. They can go back to the videos. They can look at their game, their handicaps if they carry one. It's just it's a different animal. Hey, let's talk about the future. It's interesting. I shared with Keith, we did a podcast, or not a podcast. We did a virtual lesson for a corporation, right? And we had 5,000 people on the phone, man. Or not on the phone, on the line, I should say. That's how old I am. I still call it a phone. But we had 5,000 people viewing this, and it was an unbelievable session. We did for about a half hour. And then we had 30 minutes of question and answer. And there again, that's something. And this was to a financial institution that provided it free for their high net worth clients. So they, if you're a high net worth client, instead of getting a letter opener in the mail, if you would, as a thank you, if you would, you got, an opportunity for a virtual golf lesson. And, if we look back, Keith, even just, a year or two ago, that would never happen, right? Just never.
Right.
Where do you see the future going with this?
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. And, obviously we started building this before COVID hit, and,
Right.
COVID really changed the mindset for many industries. And so I think it helped kickstart this thought of a virtual golf lesson or the virtual world. And then, shortly after, you see other companies coming along, like Tiger and Rory starting this virtual golf league. Okay. And then you see someone like a TaylorMade giving a club deal to, people that are in the YouTube world that are now, that's larger than the 30th ranked golfer on tour. And
Yeah.
so you can start to see this shift where maybe a virtual setting is easier, it's more accessible, it's more convenient, it's more affordable. It's not 6 hours away from your family.
Right.
So more and more people can actually come out and enjoy it and access it. So I do think that as we see the growth of the game, you'll see a lot more of it off course. Now, I still love to go golf. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
and I encourage everyone to go play around a golf. But from a day to day perspective, it's a lot. Like I took my son over to the putt putt after work for an hour, down the street, and that's something for him to start learning the game. But we're not going to go sit on the course for 5 hours, right now after work. And so I think you start seeing other things that are more accessible to help grow the game of golf for the other generations that are coming, that are already used to these virtual, a lot of younger generations live on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And so that's where they're getting a lot of their information from and their influence from. So
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the growth of the game.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I would take it one step further. Being an instructor, this is my 10th year, fourth year full time. But I remember when video first came out, right? If you got a golf lesson with an instructor that did video, you were you got a good lesson, right? And that instructor was far ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah.
And now that's second nature. Everyone uses video, and actually it's going the other way, right? Instructors are using less video. And then there was data, right? The launch monitor craze. Remember that came out a few years ago, right? Everybody
Yeah.
had to have everyone had to have a launch monitor. What is my specs? And what is my inside outside number? And am I pushing the ball? And what is my smash factor and all this? And I really see the virtual lesson piece as kind of the next iteration of that, right? I see it as like people are going to want to be in touch with their golf instructor. They're going to want to have that personal coach, right? To your point, I got a 22-year-old son that just graduated school last year, and he did his entire interview process over the phone, and his buddy just got fired. Guess what? Over Zoom, right? So,
Wow. Wow.
well, I probably don't condone that, but at the end of the day, my point is that the technology is such that the companies don't see value in face-to-face meetings anymore for certain things. And the golf instruction business is getting that way as well. While there's certainly value in it, but there is also value in that ability to have that coach tighten you up when you have that pull hook going. When you can't hit your driver to save your life anymore. A quick set of eyes and just to reiterate what you and your coach were working on is invaluable. It really is. And if you're really going to work on your game, you want a coach, right? You don't want lessons. You want a coach. And there are different definitions to both, clearly, right? A lesson is transactional. A coach is aspirational, right? You're absolutely helping someone get to a goal as a coach rather than just help them with a lesson. So,
and that's why we say we're more than just a lesson, right? We want to
love
be the
it.
coach wherever you go. And we actually had a testimonial come in to your exact point that said, he was trying to wrap his brain around it, but he said, for me to have a coach everywhere I go, just like a PGA Tour player would, and actually be able to afford it, that is really kind of ridiculous,
Yeah.
And so, and he lives out in New Mexico, and he actually got a 5-minute lesson while playing a round of golf because he kept duck hooking it, like you were saying. And he had his friend that he was playing with hold up the phone, and the coach fixed him in, real quickly. Next time it's going to be you, Daniel. And 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 so you can just see how it creates a whole nother component for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Keith. Well, look, man, that's all the time we have today. We try to keep all of our podcasts around the 30-minute actually 15 to 30 minutes, so that you can be driving your car, you've been going to the local store, or on your way to take a golf lesson, either way, and get through the podcast. I really appreciate, I know you're busy, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out. It's GolfLive, everybody. It's a great name. It's more than just a lesson. We're thrilled to, not only have I used the platform and believe in it, but I met Keith personally, and wouldn't partner with a company where I didn't meet the founder. So he's a great guy, and I highly encourage everyone to at least check it out. Download the app, check it out. It'd be great if you picked Daniel Guest, Guest, as your instructor. That would be great. But even without that, I think you'll find value in the platform for sure.
Well,
go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you so much for having me, and everything that you're doing at Imagine is absolutely incredible. And it was a pleasure to get to hear and see everything that you're doing and building, and the success that your students are having is just off the charts. So really appreciate you and excited to be working with you, and congrats again on everything you've built.
All right, Keith. Thanks, man. All right, everyone. Well, be sure to check out our site, ImagenGolf.com. You can follow us on all the social media platforms. You can find, by the way, the GolfLive app at any Apple or whatever. It's for iOS and it's for Google. So Google Play or whatever. It's easy to find. And that's it, man. Here's to getting you the game you've always imagined. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.